Dave Schmecker. I live in Naugatuck, Connecticut. I am a veteran, U.S. Navy veteran. My background, I used to be a tool maker. I had a small business welding, plastic injection molding parts and fixing tools. I did that for a long time, but I was injured in the Navy and my back injury got progressively worse. I couldn't stand on my feet too long. Recently, about 6 months ago, I requested through the Veterans Administration to see a specialist for my spine because the medications that they were providing me weren't effective, and not only were they not effective, but they were changing. They changed the chemical makeup of the medications even without my doctor's prior knowledge. So 1 month the medication I was receiving was fine. The next month the medication was changed to something that my system couldn't tolerate. So I reached out to my doctor and asked if I could see a specialist to possibly discuss a different form of treatment that would be better, for me, and it would help me, possibly even get away from this medication that wasn't being effective for me. There has been contentions through the Veterans Administration between myself and the Veterans Administration on many issues, starting from when I was actually applying for benefits to the Veterans Administration. It wasn't like I made a phone call one day to the VA and said, "Hey, I'm disabled, I can't work anymore, give me benefits." It was, I had to get many different doctors' professional diagnoses, many of them, not just one but several. And so it's the contention between myself and the Veterans Administration kind of started in that way. Anytime I ever wanted to get any kind of medical help, there was friction. It wasn't easily done. It was almost like they put a stone wall in front of veterans and wanted to discourage them from even using the VA. So I had to aggressively advocate for these medical benefits, and in doing so, I might have made some people angry. Might have stepped on some people's toes. I've had to write several clinical appeal letters, basically arguing my stance on why what they're providing me for healthcare isn't working, and how come, and how come I'm not able to discuss these things with doctors and what have you. So back to the story of what's going on with me is 6 months or 7 months ago, I requested to see a pain management specialist for my spine. The Veterans Administration got back to me with a phone call one day, and they said, "Okay, Mr. Schmecker, you can see a pain specialist, a pain management specialist for your spine. It's going to be a long appointment. It's going to involve a half hour with a psychiatrist, a half hour with a psychologist, a half hour with a physical therapist, and then you will be able to see the pain management specialist." And I refused that appointment because I didn't want. I told them that I don't want to see a psychiatrist and a psychologist for a spine injury. I didn't think it was necessary. In the past, before that, about a year and a half before that, I had seen the pain management clinic, and they put hydrocortisone shots in my back and said, "Go home and see how this works, and if it doesn't work, get back to us." So I gave it a try, and I waited 1.5 years. I relied on pain medications to kind of help me, and ultimately, like I said, they changed the medications to something my system couldn't tolerate. So like I said, I reapproached them, but all up until that point, I was never receiving any medications from the pain management clinic. I always received all my medications through my primary care physician at the VA. And the type of medications I received were only the least invasive medications, meaning he wasn't allowed through the bureaucracy there at the VA to prescribe anything pretty much more than what he was able to prescribe, and I just stayed with that. I trusted my doctor. I trusted my doctor with his decision with that, and I agree with that. I still do. I still agree with not taking the medications, you know, going forward and getting, you know, stronger medications for what I need. I don't want to put myself at risk. I don't want anything that's, you know, going to be, you know, hazardous, more hazardous than what I already take. I refused that appointment because I didn't want to see a psychiatrist or psychologist for a spine injury. Fast forward about 6 months from there, I was in my home one morning on February 5th, and I was having some personal issues, you know, going through some personal issues, and I'd rather not discuss on they were my personal issues. I wasn't dealing with them through any other source but my friends and family. So one day on that February 5th, the morning of February 5th, I left my house to go visit a friend in West Haven, and he and I talked a little while, and he said, let's go to church and talk to a priest. It might help. Let's just go there, we'll talk, we'll pray, and you might get something out of it. It might help you with your problems. I said, oh, how could that hurt? I said, okay, let's do that. We looked in the phone book. I said, if I'm going to go to a church, I'd like to go to a small church. I really don't want to go to a large church or anything like that. But we looked in the phone book, and we really couldn't find a small church right around there. So we ended up going to a church that was a stone's throw from the West Haven Veteran Administration's hospital. And I confided with my friend and the priests that were there. We discussed a few of my problems. We prayed. I think we were there for all of 15 minutes. Left there, my friend and I went to have breakfast, and I went on my way back home. I was out of my house for an entire 2 hours. I got home. 2 hours later, I noticed on my caller ID that the local police department had called my house, and I was curious to know why. It was very odd. So I called them and I asked them, you know, why did you call my house? And I had noticed it snowed that day and that morning. I noticed there were footsteps at my door and stuff like that, and so I kind of put two and two together. They were at my house, and they told me that we came up to see you. You weren't home. We were going to perform a wellness check on you. I said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'll come down, you'll see everything's okay, and then I'll go on my way, and you know, that'll be it. I went down to the police station. I talked to the receptionist in the lobby, told her why I was there. She said, yes, we were expecting you. An officer will be right out to talk to you. I waited out in the lobby, maybe 15-20 minutes, could be a half hour, I don't quite remember, but it wasn't very long. I tried to be patient as I could, wait for someone to come out, but no one was showing up. I decided to leave and go home and call them from home when I got home. I came back home, and I waited a few minutes, and I recalled them up, and I told them that I was just right there at the station, and I waited in the lobby, and no one came out to see me. They said, yes, we were predisposed, and but we still want to perform a wellness check on you. They said, we'll be right up. I said, well, you know, I don't want the stigma of having police cars in front of my house. I will meet you at the end of my street. My street is very short, 2 or 3 houses down to the end of the street. I took my truck I drove down the end of the street and I parked. I sat in my truck for about a half hour waiting for the police to come. They eventually showed up. They asked me to step out of the truck. I did. I wasn't impaired. I wasn't foggy. I wasn't excited or anxious or combative. I basically let them know everything was fine, and I was expecting to get right back in my truck and be on my way because I had things I wanted to do that day. They didn't hear anything I said. As I was going to get back into my truck, they took my keys from me and said, "You're not going anywhere. We're going to take your truck, we're going to drive it back to your house for you, and then you're going to go to a psychiatric evaluation." I saw this all coming. I saw the writing on the wall. I was pretty, nervous then. I was like, I can't resist. There was no witnesses around me at all. None of my neighbors were home. It was in the morning while they were at work. I didn't have a family or friends here. So when we got to my house, they insisted that I let them in. And when I did, they rifled through my home, searching for everything, through everything, underneath everything, in every room. Two officers, armed officers. I was not armed. I wasn't giving them a hard time. I let them know at all times that this was against the law, and they did not have a warrant to do so. But instead of resisting, I decided not to resist because I knew if I had resisted that I would be in a different form of trouble than I was already in. I would have been roughed up or worse. So I decided to be calm, tell them that I'm not okay with what they're doing, and tell them, all the time while they're doing it, that they're breaking every law that I could possibly imagine and not providing a warrant. They said, "Mr. Schmecker, you're going to hand over your guns." And I told them that I have a gun in my safe. And they said, "Well, you're going to have to open your safe." I said, my safe is locked, and I hid the combination somewhere. I really don't want to open my safe. They said, "If you don't open your safe, we're going to bust it open." So right then and there, I realized that this was really not going to be a good idea to resist anything. I'll live to fight another day. I'll approach this in a legal fashion, after the fact. I'll go through the motions, whatever they want to do. I don't want to resist these guys. These guys were trouble. These guys were trouble looking. These are thugs with guns. I had a cane. I was alone, no witnesses. There was nothing I could do to stop what they were going to do. So like I said, I submitted to their intimidative insistence, and I let them open my safe, rifle through everything, take my guns, confiscate my pistol permit, which I had for 6 years. And let me remind everybody, I don't have a criminal past. I don't have a psychiatric past. Okay, so I don't have problems like that. I wasn't a threat to anybody. I don't have a wife or a girlfriend or children. So this whole thing just didn't add up. It was completely void of substance of why they would be doing this to me. So I asked them, how could you possibly be doing this to me? And they said that the doctor had called the police department, said that he heard a peculiar message on my answering machine, and that's why they were performing the wellness check. I told them the message that you heard had nothing to do with anything that was threatening or threatened anybody else or myself or violated any laws. They had nothing. They didn't want to have nothing to do with it. They said I was acting peculiar. They carted me away, called the ambulance, took me away to having a psychiatric evaluation at a local hospital. I spent 72 hours there approximately against my will, and it was terrifying. It was a terrifying experience because I knew that if I did anything or said anything that could be remotely considered unusual to someone else, or resisted any of their advances of testing me, that I was going to be possibly locked up there for a very long time. So again, I complied with everything, tried to act as normal as I could, and they shot me up with something. They took blood from me, urine tests, urine samples. They, against my will, took blood pressure every half hour for the first 16 hours while I resisted. I told them, I don't want you to keep on taking this blood pressure. You know, whether or not anybody knows this, but, you know, getting your blood pressure taken once is maybe not that invasive. Okay, you get your blood pressure taken, they squeeze the thing on your arm, pressure builds up, it's there for about a minute, they release the pressure, they measure your pulse, and they get their reading. That's not that bad. But let me tell you, when you're 50 years old, they do that 16, oh, can't stop this.
Alright, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Alright, so after a while, it doesn't matter how many times they squish, I mean, one time they do a blood pressure check, you know, it's not that invasive to your body. You know, your body recovers from it relatively quickly and doesn't hurt you. But after every half hour for the first 16 hours, it hurts. And then your blood pressure in your body starts going on all different places it never did before, like your heart and your head. And it's invasive, and I objected, and it didn't matter if I objected. They just kept on insisting, and finally I told the doctor, one of the doctors there who I kind of liked, I told him what was happening, and he said, "You could object to that and they won't do that." I said to them, "Are you kidding me? I've been objecting to this since I came in here, and they've been insisting on doing this all the time." He got pretty mad. Then after that, I knew that I could object and really object and say, "No, you're not doing this to me because those are the rules," and they stopped doing it. But I was drugged. They gave me some drugs, and if I didn't take those drugs, I wasn't getting out of there. So, you know, basically I complied with pretty much everything, didn't make a sudden move, didn't give them any ammunition to use against me to keep me there, because there were people that were there in that psychiatric ward for a long time and weren't going anywhere. And to me, I looked at these people, I didn't see anything wrong with these people. So myself, I was pretty scared there. I wanted to get out, fight, and live to fight another day, and approach this in a legal fashion, you know, in the courts. You know, get my word out, get some backing, get some momentum. So let me, you know, when I got out of the psychiatric evaluation, approximately 72 hours later, I asked my doctor. I called him up. It was a Monday. It was the Monday after the blizzard. That blizzard we had with like 4 feet here in Connecticut. I asked him. I said, "Why did you call the police on me? And do you know what they did to me?" He says, "Well, I called because you hadn't called to renew your medication." And I knew that was malarkey, because the Veterans Administration doctors do not take their time out of their day to call each individual veteran if they're a little late, or even if they're a lot late, of renewing their medications. It does not happen. They would let you just let the medications lapse, and you'll never get your medications, and that's just it. They're not going to even worry about it. So that was a complete nonsense, and that's when I put two and two together and realized that the church that I had gone to that morning, that was right next to the Veterans Hospital, called the VA, let them know that they had a veteran there that wasn't too happy. His supervisor at the West Haven VA called my primary care physician, told him to call my house. My primary care physician is in Waterbury. He's not even in West Haven. So they had to make a phone call from West Haven to Waterbury. My doctor from Waterbury called, said he heard a peculiar message on my answering machine. And that was the excuse that he gave me why he called my house and ordered a wellness check to the police officers. It was absolutely ridiculous. There could have been no message on the answering machine whatsoever. It still would have been the same outcome. Meaning, I could have had a blank message on that answering machine, and it would have been the same exact outcome. So, there was nothing I was going to say to those officers that were going to change their mind. There was nothing that they were going to, they already had made up their mind what was going to happen that morning. It just was how it was going to unfold, how it was going to go down was the only thing that could have changed. And all the time they were in here searching my house, and I wasn't resisting, they were telling me how much of a trooper I was, making their life easy, making their job easy. Oh man. And here's the words I said on my answer machine. I said, I feel like it's poisonous staying in my house. I feel like Cohentel's after me and I'm running. Less than 10 seconds, less than a 10-second blurb, 18 words. I'll say it again. I feel like it's poisonous staying in my house. I feel like Cohentel's after me, so I'm running. Now, you let me know where in those 18 words I broke any laws, or I threatened anybody, or I threatened myself, or could have been a threat to the public. I never reached out to anybody saying, help me, SOS, I'm in dire straits, come to my assistance. No. Not even to any person outside when I was at the church. No. There was nothing like that. So they had it in their mind that they were going to do what they did, regardless of whether or not there was a message on that machine or not. So they confiscated my guns, confiscated my pistol permit. I have since retained an attorney. Went to the court one time with one attorney. The person ahead of me in court, in the court system there, actually had an issue where there were threats made, there were some kind of violent incantations being suggested, and he had his weapons taken away from him. He wasn't even represented. He was representing himself. Had his weapons returned that day. I had an attorney with me. They again wanted to hear nothing of what happened. The court's decision, the court's decision ruled that they were to hold my pistols for a year. I wasn't to get those pistols back. The pistol permit would be revoked, and or I could have those pistols returned to another person of my choosing who owns a pistol permit, or say like a gun shop, I could have handed it over to a gun shop to have them sold for me. So I have that paperwork right now that court system handed down. That decision was made on February 19th. They have still not been handed over to anybody. They have been refusing under the guise of incompetency. So when my attorney goes down to the police department, shows them the paperwork that the court system handed down that they should hand over those weapons, they are refusing to do so, saying, "Oh, well, we don't understand this paperwork. We're getting conflicting opinions from this person or that person, and we're not going to give you these weapons back." And it clearly states in the language of this decision that they must hand those weapons over, take them out of their evidence locker, hand them over. They are not doing so. This is not, I am not the only person in this town this has happened to. I was because I've gone public with this and it's reached so many people, other people in this town have called me and told me exactly their story, how this has happened to them. Another veteran and a veteran's wife, and how they threatened to use DCF, intimidation kind of tactics to intimidate these people, and they've taken their weapons, and the court system with them also handed down the decision that they should have their weapons returned. And that happened in October of 2012. Their decision came down in January of 2013, and the weapons still have not been returned to them out of their evidence locker to, you know, the rightful owners. I've also talked to a real estate agent here because I was considering leaving this town. I still am. And she's been a real estate agent here for a long time. She's maybe 30 years she's been a real estate agent here. She knows everybody. And she's been telling me how corrupt this town is. It's just corrupt to the core. And they're actually, what they do is they pick on vulnerable people. People who are alone, and people who they want to target and single out, who someone might have a vendetta against them or some kind of issue, they don't like them or whatever. They'll get some neighborhood snitches and neighborhood people to work in concert with these police officers. Oh man, I know that if I had resisted here that day, if I wasn't busted up, I was going to the morgue or something. It all would have depended how much I resisted. And believe me, if I was going to resist, I was going to resist all the way or nothing. I was thinking like a chess player, you know, a few moves ahead. You know, if I do this and I do this, what's going to happen? So I chose to be calm. I'm a peace-loving citizen. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I figured there was nothing to hide. There was nothing that could possibly get on me at all. I was going to say, well, if the worst came to worst, you know, the worst thing that could have come of this, I go through a psychological or psychiatric evaluation, and I would be home. And that's what happened. I pretty much, you know, stayed calm, stayed collected, and thought ahead. Thought, you know, had you know, the smarts enough to live to fight another day. And then I'm understanding after this that the Veterans Administration is sending out letters of incompetency. Here's a picture of a letter of incompetency that they are sending out to veterans across the country that are basically telling the veterans that they are deemed incompetent and unfit to handle their own personal affairs for whatever reason, they're labeling them, and they are this is a letter, a determination of incompetency will prohibit you from purchasing, possessing, receiving, or transporting a firearm or ammunition. If you knowingly violate any of these prohibitions, you will be fined, imprisoned, or both. And that would be considered a felony. Now, if you are convicted of a felony, your finances are cut off from the Veterans Administration, meaning all of your benefits are cut off from the administration. And if those are the only benefits you receive, you're not eating, you're not paying your bills, you're not living in your house very long before they foreclose on it. You're suffering. And they're doing all this without any kind of actual medical evidence backing up these decisions. These are all hearsay, meaning someone could just snitch on you for whatever reason, make a phone call, or the doctor could just not like you. Your primary care physician, not even a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Anyone in the VA could just say anything they want and have this done. Now, I've heard this has been going on across the country. Some states, the VA is doing this, and in some states the VA is not complying with this. So, meaning there are some states that are more patriotic than others. You know, some of the people who run the veterans hospitals have problems with this letter being sent out, and some veterans hospitals have no problem with it. Now, I thought I was free. I was naive, thinking I was free all this time, and what's so horrible about the whole thing is, you know, in the case of veterans who have served their country, you know, they put their life on the line for their country. So when they go into the military, they swear an oath, put their life on the line for their country. But they can come back after they serve their country and have all their rights taken away from them without any due process of the law, without any medical justification whatsoever, be deemed unfit. They're being criminalized. I mean, they feel that this is a horrible thing to have happen to somebody, because they start feeling all kinds of different emotions from something like this. It's insult on top of injury. There's zero justification. There's no due process of the law. Everything about it smells like communism and what happened in Nazi Germany and stuff like that. And as soon as they take the guns away from the public, that's when you are no longer free. Second Amendment right was put in place not for just to own guns to go hunting or to do target practice or to have a single shotgun or anything like that. No, it's to protect civilians from a tyrannical government in case that government goes off on the public. And it's already, you know, it's already a lopsided type of situation anyway, because civilians don't have the type of weapons that the government has at their disposal. And so no matter what kind of weapon you have, whether it be a 10 or 20 round magazine, it doesn't equate to anything that compares to what the military or the government has at their disposal. It's just a lopsided situation to begin with. So why take away people's gun rights? Why do that? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. They just want to control people. They want to get you under their control. They want to, you know, if they want to squeeze tighter and tighter. They can never squeeze tight enough. And so if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. And it's time for people to take a stand, organize, put a stop to this, nip it in the bud. Don't let it get out of hand. That's why I'm sounding the alarm now, before it can. I mean, it might even be too late. I mean, it probably is too late. Nobody seems to want to hear, even when you show them evidence. It seems as if they just want to close their ears, like, I hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. You know, they just want to close up and retreat into their shell. And that's not going to help you. That's only going to make you a rat in a cage, spinning your wheels, going nowhere, a slave. If you speak up now, you put your foot down, you organize, you don't stand for it, stop believing the mainstream media, start insisting on both sides of the story about everything.
I'm John Beidler. I'm State Chapter President of the Oath Keepers for Connecticut.
I think about that as the reason that I'm here right now. It hits home. Nobody wants any further legislation on gun control. What they're trying to do to restrict legal, law-abiding gun holders is ridiculous. The criminals don't turn in their guns. We turn in their guns because we abide by the law. That's not fair.
Standing up. You've got military also who are voicing their opposition, and this is what we're trying to encourage and spread, is the individual responsibility of everyone in taking the oath to say no, to nullify.